The Man Who Planted Stars. In a small, forgotten village nestled amidst rolling hills, there lived an old man named Elias. Unlike the other villagers who toiled in their fields or mended their roofs, Elias had a peculiar occupation. Every night, as the sky deepened into a canvas of ink, Elias would climb the highest hill overlooking the village, carrying with him a small pouch filled with glittering dust. The villagers often whispered about him. "Look, there goes the star planter again," they'd murmur, their voices laced with a mixture of amusement and pity. Poor old Elias, lost in his own world. They couldn't understand why he spent his nights scattering shimmering dust into the darkness. They saw no crops growing, no houses being built, no tangible benefit from his strange ritual. But Elias paid them no mind. With a gentle smile on his wrinkled face, he would reach into his pouch and with a flick of his wrist, send a sprinkle of stardust soaring into the night. He did this with meticulous care, as if he were tending to the most precious garden. One young boy, however, was different. His name was Omar, and he was often found trailing behind Elias, his eyes wide with curiosity. One evening, as Elias prepared for his nightly ascent, Omar gathered the courage to speak. "Elias," he asked, his voice small but earnest, "why do you plant stars?" Elias stopped and looked down at the boy, his eyes twinkling like the very stars he seemed so fond of. He knelt beside Omar and said, "Look up, young one." "What do you see?" Omar gazed at the night sky, already dotted with a few early stars. "I see lights," and he replied, "far away and beautiful." "And how did they get there?" Elias asked gently. Omar shrugged. "They've always been there, haven't they?" Elias smiled. "Perhaps. But imagine a time when the sky was completely dark, a void with no glimmer of hope. Someone long ago must have looked up and wished for a little light, a little beauty to pierce the darkness." He then opened his pouch, revealing the shimmering dust. "This," he said, taking a pinch and letting it drift through his fingers, "is the dust of dreams, the essence of wonder. When I scatter it into the night, I am not creating new stars, not in the way you might think. But I am tending to the hope that they will always be there. I am reminding the darkness that even the smallest spark of light is precious." Omar watched, mesmerized, as Elias continued his climb. Night after night, Omar would join him, not always understanding, but always captivated by the old man's quiet dedication. He learned the names of the constellations Elias pointed out, the stories whispered by the ancient patterns of light. He began to see the night sky not just as a dark expanse, but as a tapestry woven with countless tiny miracles. Years passed. Elias grew older, his steps slower, but his nightly ritual never wavered. Omar, now a young man, often walked beside him, sometimes even carrying the pouch of stardust. The other villagers still chuckled, but their tone had softened over time. They had grown accustomed to the sight of the old man and the boy silhouetted against the moonlit hill. One particularly dark night, a heavy storm rolled in. The wind howled, and thick clouds blotted out the stars. The villagers huddled in their homes, fear gripping their hearts. But Elias, with Omar at his side, still made his way up the hill. The wind threatened to tear the pouch from their grasp, and the rain lashed against their faces. Yet Elias stood firm, his hand reaching into the pouch one last time. With a final, sweeping gesture, he scattered the remaining stardust into the raging storm. Omar looked at him, concern etched on his face. "Elias, the stars aren't even visible tonight. Why do you still do it?" Elias smiled, a weary but peaceful smile. "My boy," he said, his voice barely a whisper above the wind, "we don't plant stars just so we can see them. We plant them for the nights when we cannot. We plant them so that even in the deepest darkness, the hope of light remains." The next morning, the storm had passed. The sky was washed clean, and the stars shone with an unusual brilliance, as if they had been polished. The villagers, emerging from their homes, looked up in awe. There was a clarity, a vibrancy in the night sky they hadn't noticed before. Elias passed away peacefully that winter. The villagers mourned the quiet old man who had spent his life planting stars. Omar took on his mantle, continuing the nightly ritual. He understood now that Elias hadn't just been scattering dust. He had been nurturing hope, fostering a sense of wonder, and reminding everyone of the enduring beauty that lies beyond the immediate darkness. And so, in the small village nestled amidst the rolling hills, the tradition continued. Every night, a figure would climb the highest hill and scatter shimmering dust into the darkness, a silent testament to the enduring power of hope and the quiet magic of the man who planted stars. The villagers, looking up at the twinkling sky, no longer saw a foolish old man, but a legacy of light, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the stars are still there, waiting to be seen, because someone, somewhere, had the faith to plant them.